Coming up on show 388, the Tesla Model X is the first SUV to receive a perfect crash rating. DHL electrifies their delivery vehicles in New Zealand. And in France, their president unveils a plan to promote electric batteries. Well, those stories and so many more. It's a busy one today. Good morning, good afternoon and good evening. In fact, wherever you are in the world, welcome to EV News Daily. Hello to all the new listeners that I can see tuning in over the last few weeks. If that's new, if you're new to the podcast, welcome along. Thursday, the 14th of February. Happy Valentine's Day. I love you long time. My name is Martyn Lee. I've been through every EV story I can find today. I've picked out these ones, which I think are going to save you the time of looking through the stories for yourself. And thank you to everyone who supports this show, whether that is myev.com, the USA website to trade EVs, buying and selling, learning about them as well, a totally new marketplace, whether that is Tesla Hire, electricmotoring.net in the Chicago area, whether that's Phil Roberts here in the UK, electricfutureef.energy, and all of our supporters. Thank you so much. Two new Patreon members. Thank you so much. It's always lovely to get a couple a week, but two in one day. I'm a very lucky boy. Two new executive producers. So that's Craig Coles. Now, Craig Coles was then busy emailing me stories, which is wonderful because it always helps broaden my knowledge when the listeners of the show get in contact. Thank you, Craig, and hello to Juan. Now, Juan Gonzalez, and I hope I've said your name correctly. Juan Gonzalez, if I've butchered your name somehow, please correct me. The one thing that I must do is get everyone's name correct. It's just one of the things that I think is the most respectful thing you can do. Thank you then to an email of one of the supporters of the show, Marco Mascarello, is I imagine how I might say his name if I met him. He sent me a picture. Now, Marco emailed me a picture because he was walking through an airport today. I think it was Schiphol Airport in Amsterdam. And he walked past the Tesla Model 3 that's on display. And he said he had a good look at it. And what they've got on display in the airport is a US version here in Europe because it hasn't got the CCS plug on it. So they've flown a US version in to put on display at one of the world's biggest airports. Not biggest, busiest, I should say. And hello to Karthic. Now, Karthic has sent me an email to say that he noticed iPace deliveries dropping off in the Netherlands from 3,000 last month to 1,000 in January. And he was asking me if I knew what was behind the drop. I don't know. Maybe it's just the natural fluctuations in that market. A big market for iPaces. I do know that actually in Austria, because the Jaguar iPace is not made by Jaguar, if that makes sense. They sub that one out to a different company. And I do know the company that makes that based in Austria have had really heavy snowfall and some extreme weather conditions. I wonder if that's affected even supplies or even like things like storage of the lithium-ion battery packs. I don't know, but I do know they've had some horrendous weather around the factory that makes the iPace. So perhaps production slowed, but I don't know. Don't quote me. If you do, please let me know, even if it's on the quiet and I won't say your name. Oh, I've been having a little play, by the way, for European listeners of the podcast, a little play on the Renault Zoe configurator, and I noticed that, because it used to have two models, there used to be a quick charge and a slower charge. There was a 43 kilowatt and a 22 kilowatt charge speed Zoe, and they've completely got rid of the Q90, so now, if you want to buy a new Renault Zoe, you've got one option. That's the R110. So it's the bigger motor, more powerful motor. It charges slower at 22 kilowatts. However, it comes in two trims, the Dynamique or the S trim. So that is an enormously popular car here in Europe. If you're not in Europe, you'll be wondering what the fuss is all about. I guess it's like us. If you're listening in the US, it's like the Bolt, but over here, because we don't get that car. Hey, as I always say, if you want to check out new and even used Zoes, you must check out my friend Will Adams at DSG. They're in Morecambe. He's a dealer. And Dealer of the Year. Renault awarded them Dealer of the Year. And also, if you're after used ones, just Google EV Nick. Now, Nick makes YouTube videos, and there's nothing he doesn't know about Renault Zoes. Hey, let's talk about the Tesla Model X. Unlike most SUVs, which tend to roll over with ease in emergency situations, the Model X continues to return to an upright position. Here's why the Model X was the first SUV ever to receive the perfect crash test rating. When it comes to vehicle safety, size matters, so it's not uncommon for SUVs to be generally safer than standard sedans. However, they tend to have one big shortcoming, and that's rollovers, reports Business Insider. Since the Tesla Model X is an EV, there's no need for mechanical components under the hood of the car. It allows for a much larger crumple zone. In fact, the Model X, as I mentioned on yesterday's podcast, has a huge frunk. It absorbs energy from any frontal crashes. It also has a specially made side sill, and these absorb energy better than other cars in addition to the rigid side pillars as well. These features reduce the force exerted on passengers, increases their protection, and of course the battery pack being the skateboard design completely underneath the passengers means a very low centre of gravity. This was an article that I picked up thanks to one of my friends. I call him Elon. Yeah, Elon Musk tweeted out a link to this story. I can see why he would have been proud of that achievement. Congratulations to the Tesla team for that design. Here in Europe, I mentioned the Zoe a moment ago, simplifying their lineup. It's a good thing, by the way, because I was always slightly confused by two different Zoes, two different charge speeds, different motors in them as well, because the one that charged faster got shorter range. It was less efficient. The motor made by Continental, and the slower charging one was made by Renault. Anyway, that's all gone now. It's the R110. It's the Renault motor that's inside. The French market, by the way, had big Renault Zoe registrations in January, up almost 80% year on year. For the total market, fully electric models jumped 140%. Their highest growth rate in 2 years. The French are really getting into EVs. Plug-in hybrids, they remain positive, says Jose Pontes for Clean Technica. Looking at the bestsellers, easily in France, they love their homegrown cars. French, very proud of the Renault Zoe made in Flynn, and so it just towers above everything else. It's why, quick digression, it's why I get a bit bemused sometimes when I see Americans online whinging and moaning about Tesla, and I think you have homegrown in the USA, perhaps one of the ultimate flag-waving countries of the world, right? Huge national pride. You've got arguably, at the moment, the best EV company in the world, and yet there's still people that whinge and bitch and moan about it. I don't know what they call short sellers and people that are betting the company fails. It's a head scratcher for me. But anyway, back to the story. The Zoe did 1,496 sales in January alone. That puts it inside the top 30 of all car sales. The real events, though, were the Kia Niro, the e-Niro going on sale, and the Kona. The e-Niro even outsold the Kona. e-Niro 149 units, Hyundai Kona 147 units, both got inside the top 10. In the comments, a user called Martyn says, Renault looks like it's starting to produce the Zoe in volume. The factory upgrade has gone from 220 to 440 a day. Next month, the Model 3 deliveries start, though. So who's going to be number one next month? Will more than 1,500 Model 3s be sold in France? My prediction, not yet. I think most of them will go to countries like Norway for the first few months. Not particularly France. Also, the Zoe is super mega cheap and has got really long range from that 41 kilowatt hour battery. Moving on to a car we rarely talk about, Subaru. I have a soft spot for Subarus, and Subaru is adding electrification to its iconic Boxer engines and showing off the technology for the first time at this year's Geneva Motor Show, reports the always excellent Motor1.com websites. Last year, Subaru introduced the Crosstrek Hybrid. The plug-in hybrid, currently only available in the US. Two new models equipped with what they're calling the e-Boxer engine are going to be shown off at the Geneva Motor Show. Not clear yet what they're going to be, even whether they're going to be full plug-ins or just some lame soft hybrids, but we'll wait and see. I'll put a link to Motor1.com in the show notes. Now, from one of our listeners, our fellow listener, Rakesh. Now, Rakesh Shah sent me a story about DHL. The delivery provider, DHL Express, has added electric vehicles to their New Zealand fleet with the aim of reducing the logistics-related emissions to net zero. Their target's 2050. They've got a while. I think in the next 31 years, DHL, you're probably going to get there. Reports inside retail website, the vehicles are going to be used for pickup and delivery across Auckland, Christchurch and Wellington, and reducing CO2 emissions of DHL in the area by 80%. The vehicles have been funded partly by the New Zealand government through its Low Emissions Vehicles Contestables Fund, which seeks to expand the use of electric vehicles and other low-emission technology in the transport space. From four-wheel vans to two-wheel bikes, Sabrina at rideapart.com. If you love your bikes, by the way, check out. You'll be well aware of rideapart.com if you like your bikes. Brings up the next story. New to the market, a company called Druid has launched its very first motorcycle. The Druid company are launching the Sorcerer motorcycle. It's half hybrid and half all-electric in terms of the range. Some of them are petrol-fueled hybrid, some of them are pure EV, according to the website. All we know about the pure electric one, the Sorcerer XEV, is going to come with 150 horsepower on two wheels. That is going to be a rapid bike. Moving to France again. A love affair with France. Well, it is Valentine's Day after all, and France is a very romantic country. France is going to invest 700 million euros, that's about 800 million US dollars, over the next 5 years into projects that are aimed at boosting the European electric car battery industry, reducing the car makers' reliance on their Asian rivals, according to Business Insider. In a speech today to the Paris-based International Organization of Motor Vehicle Manufacturers, President Emmanuel Macron unveiled his strategy to help the French car industry fend off the competition from the Asian and the US tech giants as well. The plan comes after Germany, in November, I think it was, set aside €1 billion to support cell production, particularly reducing dependence on Asian suppliers and shoring up jobs at home as well that were at risk from the combustion engine industry just falling off a cliff. Well, French officials said the two European countries are going to work together. We would call them Franco-German initiatives, I guess, at a time when the country's car makers are waking up to the threats posed by the Chinese suppliers in an era, really, of international trade wars. Talking about heading east and Japan and Honda's revealed an interior image of their new compact EV. It's called the Urban EV, and it's one of those cars that is just ridiculously cute. The concept is incredible. You just hope it can go from concept to production car and keep that styling. The interior is what they've pictured today, though, and the Honda's press release they sent me said it creates, get this, a warm and engaging atmosphere, inspired by the Urban EV concept. The driver interface shown in the image features a full-width dashboard, says the press release, with clean design elements and intuitive user-focused technology. You can tell this is written by a marketing department. Well, the prototype version of the EV is going to be shown on the 5th of March, less than a month to go now. CNET says that while the gauge cluster at the moment shows battery charging status, if you zoom into the picture on the right-hand side of the dashboard, that's what deserves the attention. The style of the system, similar to Honda's current telematics, grey tiles dashed with colour to delineate content. Unlike current Honda infotainment systems, if you are familiar with different Honda cars, this one is large enough to go across the whole of the dashboard. It's one entirely wide but low screen. I mean, it's incredible. Please let this make its way into the production car. The teaser image shows off EV menus like charge status, charge scheduling, heating and cooling, preconditioning for the cabin and the battery. It's pretty faint, but you can also see the climate controls on the screen as well. And there's very few physical buttons on the dashboard. They look pretty close to the controls seen in pretty much other modern Hondas. The buttons above the controls for the infotainment system are there. And yes, there is a volume knob. So not everything is on the screen, but nearly everything's on the screen. There's a single button that puts the car in park. So that would, although we can't see the drive button, that would imply if there's one button for park, there must be a button for drive, maybe a button for reverse. Check out, I've put Honda's press release, a link to that if you are into marketing speak, in the show notes for you to click on. Moving on to used cars, and more often than not, a pre-owned model is going to offer more value than a new one, and it's already taken its depreciation hit. You know, the team that have supported this show the longest, myev.com, they are building that marketplace for the US. And if you want to buy a used EV, it's a great place to start. While some cars don't quite suffer the same drop as others, a new study today from a website called iCars.com reveals the vehicles with the most dramatic savings versus new ones. According to Jalopnik today, the big EV winner, if you're buying it, or loser if you're selling it, is the used Nissan Leaf. A Nissan Leaf will on average be 40% cheaper, with an average saving of $13,500. Well, charging is one of my... I love a good charger. And it's the last story we're talking about today. PKN Orlen is signing an agreement for the supply of the next generation of chargers coming from ABB. Yep, those of sponsoring Formula E fame. The next generation DC fast chargers are called the Terra 54. The order is part of a project which is going to see 150 fast charging stations installed all around Poland in the largest cities. Under the agreement, ABB is supplying the latest multi-standard fast chargers. They're going into petrol stations. They're going to have 50 kilowatt charge speeds, and they are triple systems. So, CHAdeMO, CCS combo, and Type 2 AC, so that every vehicle is compatible. I'll put a link to that press release that ABB sent me in the show notes. On to our community section of the podcast, your bit of the show. Every Sunday, I read out answers to question of the week. I'd love to read out your email. And if you haven't sent me one this week, please do. Here's the question, set by myev.com. Are you part of an EV club? If you are online on Facebook, are you part of an EV community online? And if you are, which one? And we can raise awareness for it. Do you think there's more reason for EV owners to be part of an association or a community, even meeting up in person? Thank you to the 183 patrons of the show. Thanks to you. Get to fund it, grow it, make the show, spend more time on it. If you haven't heard as well, I'm giving up a 21-year career in radio. I started getting paid when I was 18. I started working at the weekends at a part-time job, putting CDs away for the DJs when I was 15 and still in school, and I'm 40 now. So that's a 25-year radio career. I thought I'd do this for the rest of my life, and then I did the podcast, and then it took off, and I've been called. It's a bit of a calling actually with this, to try and spread the word about clean energy, cleaning up our air in our cities where our children are growing up. And so when the Patreon support got to a level that I could make the jump and not have to worry, and I could sell my wife on it, I indeed handed my notice in. I'm on a 3-month notice period, so I quit in November. I've got 5 days left in my job. Wow, it's going to be an interesting next phase of my life, building something new, which I've never done before in the podcast. I can't say too much in the podcast space because I'm just not ready to. It's a new website, is all I'll tell you. It's a new website. The domain's been bought. I'm working on it now, but I won't say what it is because there's nothing to see at the address. But there will be, and I hope you like it. There are 183 patrons of the podcast who have gone to patreon.com/evnewsdaily. I'll make the show, whatever, whether you support. Maybe you've been supporting up to now and you want to stop, for instance. Maybe you thought, I've done 3 or 4 months and, that's enough. Feel free to stop anytime. If you want to check out any previous episode, by the way, there are 387 of them online for free. Get your new ones first and free and automatically by hitting that subscribe button. We put the audio on YouTube and every podcast platform that I can think of. On the socials, search EV News Daily. Have a wonderful day. I'll catch you tomorrow. And remember, there's no such thing as a self-charging hybrid.